You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 38. This podcast is dedicated to CIRCUS. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for everyone else to develop an understanding of what the circus world is really all about. Hey, friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna. I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. The Artist Athlete podcast is funded entirely by listeners like you. People ask me sometimes if I make a living doing this podcast, and the answer is no. Absolutely not. Y'all, I haven't put a dime in my pocket from this podcast, but thanks to my amazing friends, fans, and enemies who give small amounts of money each month to the podcast on patreon.com, I haven't lost a dime or put a dime into the podcast in a while either. Thank you so much for that, Patreons. If you want to become a Patreon, help contribute to the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. You can give as little as $1 a month and get special access to content, podcast swag, and much, much more. Again, it's patreon.com/theartistathlete. By the time this episode airs, I'll be in Thailand. But right now I'm in Berlin, hanging out with friends, seeing shows, and generally having a good old time in one of my favorite cities. I want to give a shout out to Christine Wunderlich. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Christine. I want to say Wunderlich, like kind of German, but I know you're from Canada. But Christine's an awesome aerialist and a dancer and human being, and she hooked me up with a ticket to the Friedrichstadtpalast show, Vivid. Now, the Friedrichstadtpalast is a gigantic theater in Berlin, and at the time of this recording, it has the largest square footing of any stage in the world. And so they do these really large-scale, high-budget productions there with great acts from all over. I've included some resources in the show notes for the Friedrichstadtpalast. If you're interested in learning more about their history or auditioning, you can check that out in the show notes. I want to give a shout out also to Joel Baker. Joel was a former guest of the podcast. He's on episode 30, and he connected me with the amazing clown in the show, Jimmy Slonina. And Jimmy Slonina is my guest today. Fresh from the grand stages of Cirque du Soleil and touring the world as Pink's concert host, Jimmy Slonina is an award-winning actor, physical comedian, and showman. A precision loose cannon with a heart of gold. With over 3 million YouTube hits under his belt, he has become one of the most sought-after character performers of the stage and screen. Jimmy has wowed hundreds of thousands in theaters big and small, including Madison Square Garden, Steppenwolf Theater, and more than a dozen Las Vegas showrooms. He has appeared in several critically acclaimed films, commercials, and videos. Here's my interview with Jimmy Slonina. Jimmy Slonina.
That's it.
Nailed it.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
It's Polish.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. It means bacon fat.
That's great.
Okay.
What a valuable thing to have. I mean, like, I love bacon fat.
I love bacon.
Yeah.
And bacon fat.
Yeah, and you can cook with it afterwards. Just
Absolutely.
Bacon fat and, like, yeah.
I think that's what it really is. It's that pork lard that you cook with.
That specifically is what Slonina is.
I'm pretty sure, yes.
Ah, great.
Also in Russian, it means elephant, like female elephant.
Jimmy Bacon Fat.
That's me.
James Pork Lard.
Pork lard. Jimmy Bacon Fat was my clown name in Le Rêve in Vegas.
Really?
Yeah, because we were just coming up with clown names. And I was like, my name means bacon fat. It's like, you should be Jimmy Bacon Fat. And Franco Dragone called me Jimmy Bacon Fat from then on.
Do you get your clown name or do you make your clown name?
That's a good question. I don't think, it kind of happened, not organically, but we were just like, what are our names? And we're just like, I don't know. Well, what's this? And one person was Nipples McGee, another person was The Wall. And like, we just kind of like made it up on the spot. I think Claudio Carnero was Wet Cough.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, for good reason. I mean, he's a champion cigarette smoker, or he was at the time. I don't know how you really come up with your clown names. You know, it
doesn't sound like you're too precious about it.
No, I never have been.
Yeah.
Like even in the show here, I don't have a name. I'm just the dad.
Yeah.
I'm just Rye's father. And they also, I'm also known as the Explorer.
Okay.
So the concept of the character has changed quite a bit since its inception. I was supposed to be what was it? So there was something else before the Explorer, but then it turned out to be Explorer instead. So now I'm exploring the world to find my daughter.
Okay. All right. Oh, we should back this up to the beginning.
Oh, should we back it up?
Say welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much.
And actually, what I like to do is have people kind of talk in their own words about who they are and what they do.
Okay.
Because I can say you're a clown.
Okay.
But I feel like that misses out the nuances of how you perceive or what you do.
That's probably right. Okay. Well, I'm Jimmy Slonina, and to call myself a clown, I don't know if I necessarily would even do that anymore.
Really?
I never thought of myself as a clown. I never thought I would be a clown. Growing up, I was always going to be an actor. I studied theater, but I got into a lot of physical theater and was into a lot of physical comedy and did a lot of theater that was physically based. And so, especially after college, I moved back to Chicago and did about 10 years of theater there that was largely physically based. I mean, I did other things too. I did Shakespeare and original stuff and modern plays, but I also did a lot of original plays that were physically based.
Okay.
And a lot of physical comedy was part of that as well. Physical stage combat was a big part of my post-college, my non-accredited grad school experience in Chicago, because, you know, you work in Chicago in theater and you get paid zero money at all, but you get great experience and you make the best theater in the world, arguably, I think. And so, moving from a physically based theater realm into a Cirque du Soleil style spectacle production as a physical comedian was like an easy leap, because as opposed to, like, I think Ringling or traditional circuses, Cirque du Soleil instead lends itself more towards storytelling and less about gags and over-the-top clowning, although there is some of that. I think their ecosystem builds more of a storytelling, lyrical style of clowning. That really isn't clowning, I don't think. It's more like physical characters.
Yeah,
physical
sure.
comedy, physical comedians, whatever you want to call it. But that said, I mean, I was in Kuza, which was directed by David Shiner, big time clown for many, many years, and wanted to make a clown heavy show. And the clowns in that were more traditional. They still had their own oddities and stuff and weren't very traditional, but it had a traditional base to it. So it felt more like a classical American aggressive clown. But other than that, working on O, where it's Russian clowning, also Zarkana is Russian clowning, and even this show at Berlin here, would you consider it a clown role? I mean, would you consider it, anything resembling a clown? I mean, I have no makeup, I wear a suit in the beginning, and I do some silly things, but it just lends to the question of what is clown anymore, and really what does that word mean? It also feels like a lot of people don't like the word, or don't like clowns, don't like the word clown, are afraid of clown. More people seem to be afraid of clowns than ever, these days. Reviled even the idea of having a clown near them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to navigate myself in that world too. The show at the Palast, the creators there, didn't want to call the role a clown role.
Interesting.
They've had clowns in the past, in past shows, but now times have changed. They just want to call me a comedian. So I'm the comedian in the show. So, I mean, call me whatever you want, check's clear. But the term clown right now is a tricky label these days to put on people. And I've spoken to a lot of old school, people who are holding on to clowns, and they're having a hard time like negotiating with themselves of like who they are and what and how they identify themselves as a performer.
Yeah, sure.
And how to label themselves.
Interesting. I'm wondering about when you're creating as like a physical theater artist versus a clown. I mean, there are very old clown bits or clown routines or clown ideas that kind of get passed down, is my understanding of it.
Sure.
How much of that work do you take in? Like when I saw the show yesterday, that kind of motif of like having a light here and having a light here and then running back and forth, you know, that's super, I don't know if I want to call it traditional, but it's something it's a conceit that's used a lot.
Sure. I have no official clown training. I didn't go to any clown college or anything like that. Like my training was on the field, I guess, you know, just like working on shows and studying, you know, on my own, just appreciating, you know, whatever film videos that I can glean from, and then working alongside brilliant, funny people. But I didn't have any sort of like physical or traditional learning experiences to like have anything like that handed down to me. I think over the years, especially like putting this show together, putting this act in this show together, it's just comes from just kind of like maybe an inherent thing of just like, okay, a beginning, middle, and an end. You start with what is needed to start with. Like, okay, the director wants this character. Okay, now I'm this character and this person has a problem. It's like he's lost his daughter in the world. Okay. You know, you just put all these pieces together and it's like, you know, how involved is this person with the outside world? It's like, well, I'm an audience member coming into the theater, and so I still have this connection with the audience.
Yeah, you did a great job with that, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Well done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, like, even throughout the show, I'm still connecting with the audience because I'm one of them, you know? Mm-hmm. And so you kind of like have to put all the pieces into the mix, and then it's just like, well, they wanted me to work with an audience member on stage, which I was like, great, I love doing that. I think what we were saying before we started recording, it was like, okay, if I'm gonna bring a person up on stage to work with them, then that person or people need to win at the end. They need to be the heroes of the act.
Right.
In a small way, but in a significant way. They need to participate, and that participation needs to be appreciated by the audience. So you gotta put them in a somewhat uncomfortable position, make them, you know, because nobody wants to come up on stage. Like, nobody wants to be a volunteer. And if they do, then I won't choose them.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, absolutely. When you see people who are like, you know, like, oh, I'll go up there, or like, I'll pick my friend, you know, or whatever, I just like avoid them like the plague. Because you lose control. Because they're like, I want to get up on stage and do my thing and like, you know, dance around and make people laugh too, you know? And they think that, well, you know, these guys are just like jerking around on stage and just being silly. I can just jerk around on stage and being silly too, not knowing that.
How do you deal with that situation? Have you ever had that?
I have.
What do you?
You try to catch them early enough and then reject them and get your backup, you know?
There you go.
So
okay.
like I've picked, you know, when I look for a person in the audience to choose, I always try to pick at least two. So I got my first choice and then I got a backup. And that happens for either if she absolutely refuses. I try to like convince them, you know, even because they're always probably going to say, no, I don't want to. And then I'm like, oh, come on. Oh, come on. Give her a round of applause. And then the audience is like, okay, fine. And then they get up. It has happened, you know, a few times where they're just like, nope, no way. Like there's nothing you could say or do that will get me up on the stage. Not going to happen. And just like you try and try and try. And you keep trying, because if she says no, then you go to the person next to her, is like, well, you come up on stage? And I'm like, no, if she said no, I'm going to say no too.
Right. Yeah.
So you little by little, your power gets chipped away, and you need to do your best to get that first person up there. But if that's just not going to happen, you have to go for your second option, and whatever you can do to, like what I've done in this case, and it's always worked, knock on wood, but the one woman says no, and I know where my second woman is, and I'm pleading with the first one, I just abandon her, and I just grab the second woman's hand and just drag her up on stage. I don't even give her...
That's great.
I don't even give her the opportunity to say no, you know?
Sure.
And by that point, they're like, what? Oh, okay, I'm up on stage now. So And that it's satisfying to the audience too. It gets a nice laugh. And so luckily that's been working so far. But
in your bit, you lip sync.
I do.
Which I also thought you were actually singing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I really hope for that to be the case.
Yeah. And then you drank the water and we were like, oh,
right.
This is great.
Right.
What's the secret to a good lip sync? How often do you practice that?
My YouTube page also has about 15 lip sync videos that I've made.
Cool. We'll link to that.
Self-produced.
For sure.
Thanks. And it's something that I've been doing for quite a while. That was also a brainchild of Claudio Carnero, who at one point asked me, he's like, hey, we should do a video of the two of us lip syncing Gold Digger, Kanye West. And like, and I'm like, oh, it's a really great idea. And then like, we just like let it go and it never really happened. And then I was on tour with Cirque and I was really bored. I was alone in my hotel room and I was just like, had the camera and I'm just like, I'm just going to do it myself. And I put myself in both singing parts and just, edit it together. And it went kind of a little bit viral among my friends. They were all like, you need to make more of these. And so I've made like 14 over the past, 10 years or so. They've been a lot of fun. They're kind of like my little performance art pieces. Mm. And I don't know what it is about lip syncing that also can be a very kind of roll your eyes, form that people like see on YouTube or wherever, because a lot of people do it and they do it for fun and they do it for silliness, or I try to make it look like I'm actually singing.
Yeah.
Like it's actually looking like it's like the sounds are actually coming out of my mouth, even though it is instead, David Bowie or the Beastie Boys or whatever.
What do you think are the components of that, or what are the components of that you like check in and look at?
Hard to lip sync. Uh-huh. If it's challenging to do, if it has a emotional heightenedness to it, if there's if it's really like charged with passion, that helps. And if it's just a fun song to listen to. I mean, Gold Digger was really popular, especially at that time. But I pick songs that I love and that I think that people love to listen to. Those are pretty big components of a successful lip sync. The song that I lip sync in the Palast was chosen by the director. It's not the original version, which also makes it easier to believe that it's me singing it rather than Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
So it's easier to fool people. And but that really is the idea. And it's hard. I think making YouTube video lip syncs are easier to palate for an audience than performing lip syncs live on stage. I think when you perform lip syncs live on stage, you need to add in jokes, props coming in, things like that. If you watch some of the lip syncs that I do, I mean, they may be dated by now, and it's like people are just like, oh, I have no time for this, and just like, oh. but I think it's a bit easier to sit and watch an entire 4 or 5 minute song from beginning to end of just me lip syncing and doing nothing else. I mean, that's basically what these videos are. And I'm kind of stubborn that way too. I want to do the whole song. I don't want any props. There's a few that I use props in, but I just do the whole song. I do it as is. And it's been successful for me. It's gotten me a lot of work, actually.
Cool.
So,
that's great.
Yeah. It's been a great little resume piece.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's CIRCUS physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show.
I want to go back to, you said the director chose the song. And in your work with Cirque or at the Palace,
Yeah.
how much of what you do is your own ideas that you bring to the table? And what do you find the directors, how much of it is a collaboration, you bringing it to them?
Sure. It depends. And working on creation for a brand new show, I've only really done a handful, including this one. But the director had this story, this entire arc of the whole story of the show, obviously, and my part in it. We did have a lot of sit downs with the director, myself, my clown director, who is also a separate person who just was my co-writer and my director.
And did you know him previously?
I knew her, yeah. Yes,
yeah.
Back in Vegas. It's Shannon Calcutt. She's the clown in Zumanity.
Cool.
And I've worked with her before, and when I got this gig, I said I need to bring Shannon on to I can't do this by myself. And so we had, things to work on together, and bringing them to Krista, the director, when she brought up the idea for the song, we both were like, that's great. That's going to be work really well. The act itself morphed from one completely different thing to what you saw yesterday.
Oh, what was it before?
And again, this was more of collaboration of many different people. The creative director from Berlin put some input into what should be in the act. Krista bringing in, and we all kind of put together this kind of committee of an act that kind of looked like a Frankenstein of an act. It was, similar thing with the ballet in the beginning, the ballet dancer. And then I'm still looking for my daughter. And so I have this contraption where I have these this brain swapping two hats, and I need to find the other person to put it on to get information from them where my daughter is. And so the hats would light up, and then images would fly up on the screen, and then weird images would fly up on the screen, and of famous people, Heidi Klum and
Sure.
Angela Merkel and all these weird things. And I'd be swiping, trying to find put together the pieces of my daughter's face, and oh, there she is, all the pieces in the song. It just wasn't working together. So we were like, you know what? We need to scrap that section. And I think it was me who came up with the idea of finding a guy. It's well, if I'm going to sing this love song, if you want me to lip sync this love song, then I'll bring up a girl and sing to her. Mm-hmm. So we kind of scrapped the whole searching for my daughter side to it for that. But I think it's okay. I think it's the character also gets lost in the world and becomes free to express himself in a similar way to how his daughter is now learning and expressing herself within the world.
What is that feeling of when you, because there's times where you have an idea and you're I don't know how to make this work. And you work on it, you work on it, you work on it. And then there's oh, it clicks. Mm-hmm. How long do you keep something like that before you're you know what, swipe, scrap it?
We didn't really know. Shannon and I didn't really know how to perform comedy for a German audience, which I think is another factor, because
Sure.
I think we have a pretty good idea of what works for a Cirque du Soleil American audience, or just cabaret in New York or LA or whatever. We can probably have a good idea of what will be successful.
What are some of those things?
In America? Well, that's a good question. I mean, I guess
What's funny in America?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, that's an easy question. Well, that's the thing too. It's like, you're talking about a Cirque du Soleil audience, which are international audiences. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to go away from anything that's verbal, and you have to it has to be more physical. Whereas I think in New York, you need to have a little bit more of an educated, I don't want to say story, but it has to have some sort of maybe a narrative or some sort of intellectual basis.
A through
to
line,
it.
yeah,
a through line, or something that is like something that has some sort of intellectual satisfaction to it. You can't just like do stupid humor in New York, because New York audiences are pretty refined. I mean, LA, it's a bit challenging because, stereotypically they're all kind of looking out for themselves and stuff, and it's very, narcissistic, ecosystem out there. It not, across the board, but yeah, so it does kind of depend even regionally.
Sure.
Chicago has its own sort of like working collar, no nonsense honesty and all that stuff.
Gotcha. And so the Germans,
we had no idea. I mean, and we're still learning, and I had worked with Pink. I was her concert host for her world tour in 2013. And so I did mostly physical, but also verbal comedy on her tour.
That's cool.
It was crazy.
How'd you get that gig?
Lip syncs. The director saw a lip sync video and was like, we need that guy. And so I didn't even audition. So they were like, this is the job if you want it. I mean, they saw my website that I'd worked for Cirque du Soleil, so they knew I wasn't just some schmo that, produces lip sync videos. So they knew I had large scale production, to do that sort of thing. The most successful area that we traveled in that appreciated the physical part of what I did in her show was Germany. And like for some reason, when I did the physical comedy in Germany, it got the biggest reactions. And so I was like, well, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe they are a little bit more in tune towards, physical comedy, not necessarily towards overly clown, but still they can appreciate the physicalness. And I don't speak German, and I think it'll be way much, a really, really big challenge if I'm like speaking German jokes or, telling a funny story in German, it's just not gonna be me. But I think I had already a leg up knowing that I think German audiences appreciate well done, well produced, thoughtful, physical humor.
Yeah.
And they could appreciate that. So I kind of came in with that kind of idea, and falling back also knowing that I could lip sync well and
to anything,
knowing that also that particular song is very popular here. So once the first notes are played, the audience kind of like, oh, I know what this is, So that's already a leg up on the whole thing that they're with me from the beginning. Me and Shannon had to trust the on-site creative director that he knows what this audience is going to appreciate.
Sure.
And so his input when we were like, okay, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we're just going to have to like go for it, and try it out. And the great thing about the way the Palost works too is they have like 2, almost 3 full weeks of previews. So there's tons of opportunity to like try things out in front of an audience. If it doesn't work, let's refine it and stuff.
Yeah, nice.
But luckily for us, what you saw yesterday, we pretty much hit on first preview.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's pretty close to what it was.
Yeah, I was going to ask because I know like Cirque, like when you see what debuts in Montreal, could be a totally different show than
Very
it
true.
is,
Very
4
true.
months later.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what it is like at the Friedrichstadtpalast?
Well, I don't know about other shows, but for this, there were some changes, but it wasn't significantly different. I mean, things were tightened, things were, swapped here and there a little bit, but nothing really significant. That's the other thing too, is like, I'm really product oriented. Like, I'm like one of the few people who like,
oh, interesting.
Who I kind of despise the process.
Oh, interesting.
I just want to I want to have a great, I want to like make sure it's going to work, and I want to put on that, and like to kind of like, oh, let's workshop this, it's like, it just makes me oogie. And then like, of course, we have to, and sometimes, and you have to, figure out what works because you don't necessarily know. But for me, I think one of my superpowers is I can hear the laughter in my head. Like I can like, this is going to work. And if the time's out right, it's going to hit, you know?
Do you think you developed that, or is that something you've had?
Yeah. No, that's definitely developed. I mean, developed from like performing myself, but also watching other performers, you know, like I can sit and watch a comedian, a clown do their thing and then like be like, oh, 1, 2, 3, and then the laugh, you know, I can see the pattern.
Sure.
Even though it's, you know, a great clown surprises me, it's like, okay, what are the ingredients of that surprise? Like, how did that surprise happen? Because there's a lead up. There's a great clown called Puddles. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, he's from Atlanta, actually.
Oh, that's right. He is from Atlanta. Oh, he befriended me, and I can't be any more happy that he's a friend of mine.
That's a cool friend.
He's so great. And self-taught clown. I mean, he was a rock and roll singer, you know? So he fell into this gimmick, basically, of turning himself into a clown and not speaking other than singing and having this whole persona. When I first saw his show, before I knew him, I first saw his show in Vegas. He had this really, really funny bit, which he didn't do in the second time I saw it. And I told him that I was like disappointed that it wasn't in this, that it wasn't this. At one point in the show, he goes up to a person in the audience and sings happy birthday to them. Goes up to this guy, happy birthday to you. And you know, the way he sings, happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, dear. And he leans down to listen to his name and he goes, Kevin, happy birthday to you. And then balloons are handed out. Something funny happens. Later on in the show, he sings a few more songs. He goes up to another person, a woman in the audience, also starts to sing happy birthday to her. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Kevin. And so it's like, oh, okay, funny. So he's just like calling her Kevin. This guy was named Kevin, but he's calling her Kevin as well. That joke ends. And then later on in the show, it's revealed that Kevin Costner has been the basis of his whole show the entire time. And that there's been Dancing with Wolves imagery that are like kind of put on. So it's like, it's clown magic, basically. So like the audience thinks that this first guy is actually named Kevin, right? And that the second girl is like, he's just referring to,
right, yeah.
He's just bullshitting and just referring to the first guy who's named Kevin. And then when Kevin Costner is revealed, it's like, the first guy's not even named Kevin. It's been a joke the entire time, and that's the surprise. There's no magic.
That's incredible.
It's no sleight of hand. It is a bit of sleight of hand because we really think that he's saying Kevin, the first guy. But that's what I love. That's what I love, this sort of like leading the audience along, thinking that this amounts to nothing. It amounts to nothing. And instead it amounts to everything. It's, you know, insignificant, but charming. Little insignificant thing, and then it's like it all means it all. And so that's what's gorgeous to me. And that's why, you know, that's what I call
cool.
That's what I call clown magic, you know?
Sure.
Because it's not a magician. It's not like you have sleight of hand, but it's like you make the audience be like, oh, there's significance to what I thought was bullshit the whole time.
So I want to talk actually a little bit about, you live here in Berlin, or are you based in Vegas?
Just for this show, I live in Vegas. I have a house in Vegas. And
gotcha.
So after this contract is over, then I'll be moving back.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. And you just brought your whole family here?
Yeah, just brought them here. Yeah, just like, hey, come on down. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know, it's great. I mean, it was it wasn't a hard decision to make because my boy is 9. So he's you know, 3rd grade in Germany is not an easy thing, but my wife is was a traveling artist, so she knows how to travel, and our boy is, you know, great and, you know, has no qualms about new things and being part of that. So
that's so awesome. So he's just hanging out trading Pokemon cards like he would in Vegas
with German kids.
Does he speak German?
He's learning it.
Yeah.
I mean,
better than all of us in another week.
It's crazy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
I brought them all out, and our boy was actually born on tour with Cirque du Soleil. So I was on with Kuza, and he was born during the tour in California, and he spent the first year of his life in a circus tent.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we know from circus and traveling, but cool. now it's like I don't take a lot of jobs that are like heavy touring anymore. Pink was a something I couldn't turn down. It was a
for
big
sure.
thing, and they were able to come out quite a bit for quite a few of the legs of it. We spent a large amount of time just sitting down in one spot in Australia. So they were with me for 2 months in Australia, a little bit out here too. This is how we got to know Berlin. Actually, it was from coming out here with them.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, but I'll be going back to Vegas, hopefully working for Cirque and doing other freelancey things when I'm back there as well.
Do you ever miss theater? Do you ever miss like scripts and
I do.
Shakespeare and
I do.
that world?
And I have done a few, well, not a few, I guess one thing. The past few years, it's been lucky I've been working part-time only for Cirque du Soleil, which is good and bad. I mean, bad because...
What does that mean, working part-time for them?
I'm actually still officially in Mystère.
Okay.
I'm on call right now. It'd be hard if I got the call to hop on a plane to like do the show tonight, but I did. No, I'm contracted still as of right now. The guy who does the clown act there normally is Brian Dewhurst, and this year he will turn 87. And so he's been in that role for about 19 years. And a couple of years ago, he was like, I think I should take a day off a week and just do 4 of the 5 days. I put my hat in the ring and was just like, hey, can I be that guy for 1 day a week? And since Sarcana had just closed, and so I was looking for new work, and so it's only 1 day a week, so it's not a lot of money, obviously, but it still affords me to do other gigs.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really cool setup.
Right. So, my wife works as well, so she, we make it work together, but the flexibility does really afford a lot of cool things to do. So, a buddy of mine from Chicago who now lives out in LA, put on a live action Punch and Judy play. I played Punch for the Hollywood Fringe Festival. I mean, it's a play. It had lines. I had dialogue with other people, but it was still pretty clowny. It was
I picture Punch and Judy is like the old school puppet show where they just hit each other.
Exactly. The story behind Punch and Judy is surprising to begin with, just how, if you really read these old scripts, I mean, it's about domestic abuse.
Yeah.
There's just no getting around it. It's about beating your wife who's harping on you all the time. It's about the guy who can't stand his crying baby, so he throws the baby out a window. And the kids who are watching these puppet shows, mostly in the UK, it's like it's big in the UK, in Great Britain, but the kids who watch it, it's like, oh, he's throwing the baby out the window. Oh, he's hitting his wife with a baseball bat. And things like, ha ha ha. But it's deeply disturbing.
It's kind of messed up.
It is. I mean, he has a very questionable relationship with his young niece that his wife's sister's daughter, and gets really up and close with him. There's actually there's inherent racism in it as well, and it's all addressed in this live action version, and really done
interesting.
Really done straight. This is the show that kids would probably see with the lines that are pretty much said with a little bit more swearing. We added a little bit more swearing into it, but it's pretty much is what it is. And so it was a really great social commentary. It was right before the elections and stuff. So it was a lot of that stuff was happening. Me Too hadn't really happened just yet.
Right.
But a lot of that, the undercurrents were starting.
Sure.
And we were on the forefront of that. And so it was hard hitting, and it made people really open their eyes and just be like, whoa, this is actually part of our history,
Yeah. What a different kind of project to do too.
Yeah.
Is this German person going to get on stage and pretend to play the saxophone versus this historical precedent of domestic abuse that people have been laughing at for hundreds of years?
Absolutely. I've been blessed with doing a wide range of different styles of things, performance-wise. And it's been really, really great. Stuff more for families, stuff more hardcore, stuff somewhere in between, spectacle. Like Punch and Judy was a theater of 40 people, tiny, tiny little theaters, to working, on Pink's tour, which is 15,000 a night.
Do you have a process that you do for I mean, I know some people who are like, and I'm thinking about acting training again, who are like Meisner actors, or there are these people who, like commit to one kind of process, and that's what they use for all of their work.
Yeah.
Do you have something like that, or do you find that in every project you're working a little differently?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I didn't study Meisner. I studied the Stanislavski technique. And I think if I do employ any of those techniques or those tricks or whatever, it's like, it's really deeply baked in. And I just kind of like instinctually attack a project based on like all those things I was saying. It's like, okay, the director needs this. This is the character. This is, these are the people. And like, so I don't really have a religious step by step. Okay, I need to figure this out.
Okay.
I guess it's all kind of like instinctual, like how big is the house? What
the practical, like
what's the budget?
Yeah.
It's like how much do I
like
how much can I get? For this? Like, where's the audience sitting? It's like
sure.
Okay, is there backstage? And like, then I kind of like work backwards from there. But then again, it's like still from a artistic standpoint, you need to know it's like, okay, what is this a character? Does this character have any backstory? Is there a story that needs to be told that I'm a part of, or is there no story? It just needs to be whatever. So is it part of a larger concept, or if it's just a standalone for like a cabaret one-off thing, depending. And yeah, based on that, that's kind of the direction I come at it from,
Neat.
I guess.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I have one more question for you,
Please.
though. And it is, what advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of your career?
My goodness. At the very beginning, and I learned it pretty quick, but it can't be stressed enough, is to be disciplined, is to like make sure that your self-discipline is in check. Be on time. Be good to everybody. Integrity is everything, I think, in this business. Say what you mean. Deliver on what you promise. If you shortchange anybody, you're just shortchanging yourself, and you're never going to make it. So you need to set your standards pretty high and to commit to that, and that's what will get you ahead. And being kind to people along the way. You're not going to get very far if you're a mean diva. So I had a mentor of a teacher who in college, a theater teacher, but he was a movement teacher. So he taught circus skills, stage combat, mask work, all these things. And I can pretty much thank him for all the successes that I've had up through this point. Robin McFarquhar, he taught at University of Illinois, and he's kind of my sensei, sort of,
Nice.
kind of I go back to, but he was hard on us. If you were late once, that's your one warning. If you were late twice, that's a full grade down. And then third time you're late, that's a next grade down. It's like, there was no talking around that. There's no excuses. If your alarm clock is broken, you should have gotten an alarm clock that worked. That's on you. Just like things like that, little things that are like that add up to a person's overall integrity are important. And so being on time, saying what you mean and mean what you say.
It's great advice.
All right.
Sweet. I'll take it.
Great.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jimmy. Bacon grease.
Bacon grease.
Bacon grease?
I kind of like it because it's a little bit more hardcore.
Yeah,
bacon
Jimmy
fat.
bacon
I'm not,
fat.
I'm
No,
not that
no,
fat. Well,
no.
yeah, I could lose a little, but
No.
bacon grease. That's like,
Jimmy bacon grease.
All right,
You heard it here first, folks.
yes.
That was my interview with Jimmy Bacon Grease Slonina. I think I like bacon grease better than bacon fat. It's like so punk rock, Jimmy had a lot of really amazing things to say in this episode. There were two things that really impressed me. The first overall was just how practical Jimmy is. He's definitely a creative. He's definitely a performer. He's definitely an artist. But when I asked him about process, or when he talks about the things he's considering, he's looking at it from a very practical standpoint. He's talking about audience size. He's talking about what the directors need, what the through line of the show is, what the story he's trying to tell is. And as I talk to professionals who work more and more on these kinds of scales, the more I hear this kind of feedback, that there is an aspect to it that, of course, is creative and, of course, has emotions, but there's also a job to be done. And that is where, if you're in the air or if you're acrobat, technique comes in. And there's also a technique or a practicality or all of these variables to consider as a clown or an actor or any other kind of performer, obviously, as well. But that's something that really impressed me in this interview, that he said felt more that he was interested in the product, that he was very interested in all of the external factors that go into making a show a show. And I love that he talked about those things. The other thing that impressed me about Jimmy is, while on the surface he seems like a soloist, he's a solo clown in Vivid. He, on YouTube, does these lip sync videos that are him, sometimes more than one of him, but just him. But behind the scenes, or in other YouTube videos, which are also very funny and you should check out, but behind the scenes, he brings in a lot of collaborators. He brings in a specific clowning coach to bounce ideas off of. He's always listening to the directors or other people to help him create these ideas. I think sometimes artists believe that we have to create in this vacuum, or we're responsible for all of these ideas to make them and perfect them. And really, that's not the case. The more collaborative you can be, the more you can look for outside eyes to help you hone your instincts and refine the things that you're not quite sure about or can't quite parse out yet, the better off you'll be. And ultimately, in the end, it is your work. And you do have to trust those instincts. But to create, I think it's important to remember that collaboration is a huge part. If you want to find out more about Jimmy Slonina, you can visit his website. It is Jimmy, Jimmy. Slonina is Slonina.com, jimmyslonina.com. Or you can follow him on Instagram, Jimmy Slow. If you're an aerialist and want to follow The Artist Athlete for training tips and inspiration, I'm on Instagram at @the_artist_athlete, online at theartistathlete.com, on Facebook, The Artist Athlete. And again, if you love what you're listening to and want to help me out, you can go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. Oh, and I should mention, as I'm ending this episode, on theartistathlete.com/podcasts, which is where you can listen to the podcasts online, or one of the places, we have little Easter eggs now. We're providing transcripts and other things like show notes. So if you want to find links to Jimmy's YouTube account or the Friedrichstadtpalast, that's where those will all be. So head on over to theartistathlete.com/podcasts, and you can have a whole bunch more information about this episode. Thanks for listening. Talk at you next week, friends, fans, and enemies. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hi, I'm Katie Betts, and I'm the director of Shared Culture Concepts, which is a full-service marketing company for circus and performing arts. You can visit our website at www.sharedcultureconcepts.com. On the website, you can find a copy of our ebook, which covers basics of marketing, specifically for circus educators, coaches, studio owners, and circus artists.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell, and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So, if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space, and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and slings and ropes by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus. and that's why I'm Patreon.
Hello, all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.